Broadcasting from beautiful downtown Oakland, California, this is 99% Proto-Future, a podcast about reconnecting with online forum members 15 years later. This is episode 14, interview with Tyler Trahan, part 1, Urbanism, Train Clubs, Railroad Museums, and Equity. In this episode, I discuss numerous modern subjects and perspectives of railroading hobbies with a longtime Heritage Railroad personality, club board member, and straight-up modeler savant.
I'm Tyler Trahan. I am nowhere on the internet, so you don't know me, but I've been working in and around railroads, heritage railroads, train games, video games for 10 or 15 years. I'm a member and board member at the club here.
So you're a high up.
I don't see it as a rank thing. I put my name down for the board election because if I didn't serve my community, I would have no basis in which to complain about not about the club, but I couldn't complain about American politics if I had the opportunity to be part of my club and make it better, and I passed it up. There was no competition for the seat that I was running for,
which I wouldn't have expected, seeing as you and your some of your fellow board members have strong ideas.
I'm referencing here the famous Silver Play Button awarded YouTuber Alan Fisher, who is also a board member and has featured the Model Railroad Club in several of his videos. Tyler responded very diplomatically to my goading.
Yes and no. We all have a lot of ideas, but being a board member is, I wouldn't say it's thankless, because it's not really that difficult. It's not a lot of extra work, but people don't always want the responsibility. Everyone loves to complain. They don't always want to do something about it.
What's the phrase? Critics are eunuchs at a gangbang?
I haven't heard that one, but let's get a train running.
Let's do that. This is a lovely layout. Wait a second, I know that. What? Okay, who did the paint job?
Since she wasn't there, I'll leave her anonymous, but suffice it to say this is a notable young modeler in Discord circles. What I was describing was a completely 100% custom-made modern Amtrak Aero train set. The coach bodies appear to be made from cardstock, it doesn't have the cleanest paint lines, and the glue somewhat overruns each joint, but who am I kidding? Holy fucking shit, it was spectacular and damn well better than anything I could do. A cab car adorns the back and bears an astonishing resemblance to that of the professionally manufactured ALC-42 from Bachmann on the other end, and 2 or 3 custom coaches in the middle complete the bidirectional train set. I personally pride myself in having spent years deriving a completely custom Talgo train set, and here's someone more than a decade my junior, and I'm 29, exhibiting equally as much gumption right at the start of her hobby career. I kid you not, the paint scheme is literally up to the minute accurate to actual Amtrak press releases. When I talk about young people having a more modern vision for the hobby, this is what I mean. And it was just the very first thing I saw, heard when I walked in the door. We will be returning to this train set later in the interview. In Tyler's words, this person is
the modeler I wish I was when I was her age.
And she's already an Aero train set with a pantograph and a cab car? Oh.
Scratch built from, paper.
I am nothing. I'm giving up model railroading. Goodbye, nice knowing you.
Yeah. Working with the tools and materials she has it's stellar work.
I agree. And highly motivated, too. That's another amazing part.
Yeah. And I've been watching her get better and better and better. She did this locomotive.
Holy goddamn.
It was already
That's gorgeous.
painted, but she detailed it, the sunshades, the decals on the nose. Watching her skills grow is I wish I had that level of motivation for model railroading. For me, model railroading is a social club, and I feel bad about it every time people are like, no one wants to work on the layout, they just want to run trains. I'm like, yeah, I'm here to make friends, even though running trains is optional. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm very similar in that way. Again, it's largely a means to an end. I like the hobby because I like to run trains, and I suffer through model building to do it.
That's fair.
Probably an uncommon, unpopular opinion, but I don't know. It's like I think that's what sets us apart from like military modelers.
That's a good point. So let's start with the layout tour. So this model railroad is quite historic as model railroads go. The club has existed since the 40s. I should know the year, but this layout was moved here and built here in the 50s, I believe. So the layout has a lot of history to it. The room we're standing in is about 60 feet long by 15, 20 feet wide. The layout is on two sides of an aisle, and the main feature of the layout is a operating lift bridge, which is 4.5 feet long and 6 feet high. That
Just stand next to it and we can use you to measure.
Yes, I'm 6'6", and there's probably about 6 inches of my head above it. So I have to duck to walk underneath it, but if you're under 6 feet, you can walk under this bridge without ducking. And then when a train comes by, there's a switch that lowers the bridge, letting the train go across. We don't have a signal system, but the bridge is interlocked into the layout's power. So if you drive a train towards the bridge and it's up, the train will lose power.
That's beautiful.
This worked great when the layout was for most of the layout's life. Nowadays, some people have keep alive capacitors in their locomotives, which will happily drive straight off the edge onto the floor. So you have to pay a little more attention now. Also, push-pull trains, very bad idea. If you have, like the Acela that has a power car on each end, or if you've got a Keystone set, you got to pay attention. So this is the Cheltenham Hills Model Railroad Club. We are in an old Reading Company train station. Train station no longer active, but it is still right along SEPTA's mainline trunk between Jenkintown and Elkins Park stations. So you'll probably hear on the podcast rumbling. That's the train going by. It shakes the whole building every time it goes by. You haven't heard it yet, but you will. I've been a member of a few model railroad clubs. This is the only one you can get to on transit. So actually, to get here for the interview, we took a train from Center City to Elkins Park and then walked. It's a 7 or 8 minute walk from the train station to the club, and it's service cuts start very soon on SEPTA. But even with the service cuts, it's on the Glenside
interline,
combined.
Right?
It's interline, yeah. So this is 3 different lines?
I think so.
And a few different service patterns. So like before the service cuts, it's like a train every 15, 20 minutes. And after the service cuts, it'll hopefully still be tolerable. Yeah.
We can hope.
We can hope.
What we are discussing here is septapocalypse. When we talked, it had yet to happen, now it has. Rural Republican legislators refused to vote for a sensible budget that funded cities, the economic engines of the state, and transit, the best possible thing governments could ever spend money on besides healthcare. Instead, specifically State Senator Joe Pittman of completely rural irrelevant small PA town has an intellectually dishonest and unscientific vendetta against the concept of cities, and Pennsylvania has been operating without an approved state budget for, as of this recording, over 100 days. I was on the fence about Pennsylvania, but the fact that rural shit-for-brains have such an apocalyptic influence over the most basic and important government functions besides plumbing, trains, has assured me that I don't ever want to return. Goodbye, PA, it was nice knowing you, but if this is how you treat trains in cities, I'm out, and taking my tax dollars with me. I should also, though, highlight what Tyler was saying. Model train clubs are all about trains, right? So why are so many of them so far away from trains? Thinking back a few episodes ago, if I lived in Pittsburgh, how exactly am I supposed to get to the McKeesport Model Railroad Club for a work night or an op session? It is near a long-distance bicycle trail, I'll give you that, but it's so far away from important places, and there's no train to get to those important places, so that means the club is actually completely inaccessible by any means of practical transportation, cars, of course, being definitionally impractical. So in general, the lesson here is that model railroad clubs need to be conveniently transit accessible in order to have stable memberships, especially among the growing contingent of right-thinking, car-hostile people, particularly young people.
So there's 2 halves of the layout. One side is the freight yard and engine terminal. The other side is 3 levels of tracks looping around. The full mainline circuit of the layout takes about 15 minutes at full speed. So I'm going to crawl underneath the city portion to the passenger yard. You're welcome to follow me. So we have sort of a mix of things. We have a small trolley loop. This is a fully DC system, full analog.
Wow.
It needed some love. This control panel here is for the passenger yard and main station. And this is all nice, clunky switches. Like, put the microphone up to this. There's track power. And then to line the switches out, we've got These are buttons, but they operate these double slip switches back here. These switches,
Oh, they are solid.
oh yeah, these go clunk. So
What are your switch motors? Shotgun shells?
maybe. But then we've also got, and I'll show you these later, we have, this layout is hooked up to JMRI, which is a Java Model Railroad Interface, I think.
I use JMRI all the time. I love coffee.
So we've got sort of a digital interface. So some of our control panels are touch screens, where you just touch the screen and it aligns all the switches and changes the track power in combination with this. So what I'm doing right now is I forgot to grab a throttle. We use the Digitrax. I forgot to grab a throttle, but that's no problem. I'll just connect to the club Wi-Fi network and use the throttle app. There's an app for that. That's the data reference.
Oh, I just noticed. Is that a Metroliner cab car?
It is.
Oh,
and
my
it's the Metroliner cab car built from a Metroliner with custom detailing. And you may have noticed this in the new livery. She painted it in that livery before the real one was.
Wow.
So what you may hear is the train that I'm running right now. It's a model of the Empire service in the 90s, where I've got a very, very nice Torpedo FL9 pulling a whole bunch of very inexpensive Bachmann Amfleet cars. That is my train budget, but also
Head end
it's
heavy.
like, you see this in animation where like the main character is exquisitely animated, background characters and like the scenery, they're line drawings. If you're looking at the coaches, don't look at the engine. That's where we all want to look.
All right, so where are we on the layout right now?
This is, we call it the passenger yard. It's effectively a staging yard because it's not visible to the public. We don't have, this is not a layout built for realistic operation. We don't have staging yards. We don't have really many industries. The layout is, I believe the term is...
Spaghetti bowl.
Yeah, so it's a spaghetti bowl. I was gonna say that there's sincere scenes where the track only passes through each scene once. I'm not sure if the opposite is insincere, but it seemed mean to say that about the club layout that people have spent so many years building. But yeah, the layout is built for running trains around and having a good time. It's not built for realistic operation. That's one of the things that some of our members dislike and some actually really like. There's another club that's sort of near us, the Gatsby Club. They have a newer layout that is one track at a time. It's built for operation. A couple of us went to one of their operating sessions. I really enjoyed it, but we had another member who said he didn't like having to follow his train and walk along with it. He would just like to sit down and watch his train from one position while he chatted with friends or worked on a modeling project, which I respect. I think one of the nice things about clubs is we all enjoy it in our own different ways. Let's crawl back out, and I gotta put the bridge down. Just one project for the club. I want them to extend all the legs and lift the layout up by like 3 feet so I don't have to crawl so much. But we have to be accessible to children, and children couldn't see if it was undercutting a tunnel.
Okay, so the train started over there. It pulled out from the passenger yard through a large Penn Falls station building. I recognize this. Isn't it, not Albany? Schenectady? Utica?
I'm not sure what the model is of.
A general large early mid-century train station.
Yeah, it's a pretty classic Union Station sort of design.
And
you
then-
mentioned Penn Falls. That is our freelance railroad.
Okay.
So there's a whole history of it and where it goes, but it's basically eastern Pennsylvania and allows us to run whatever we want. So if you're looking around at the layout, what you see is an Amtrak Aero set, which is scratch built. Above, there's a Santa Fe PA cab units. There's a Metroliner cab car. In front of it, there's a trolley yard. There's a SEPTA PCC. It says Western Pacific on the trolley. Right next to it, there's a circus unloading and a support car for the Urban Rapid Rail program, which was for Boeing Vertol. I think that may have been part of the
US SLRVs?
Yeah, maybe, or they also had a subway car. That was not actually ordered by anybody.
All right, so you leave the passenger train station, and then it looks like the passenger train wove around the layout, kind of did one loop back around that side, I believe, right?
Yeah, so it went down right in the front and then went up the hill in over the Y. And the Y takes you to the bridge. So we have several different loops that you can choose to follow or not. So right now the whole layout's set up for one big continuous loop. But let's say there's a lot of people in the club and you can't put the bridge down because the aisle is full of people looking at the layout. The control tower, which is up there, I'll show you in a minute.
Oh, wow.
The control tower can send a train up the hill, so it can bypass the bridge and go up the hill to the High Line. Meanwhile, trains that are on the other side of the bridge, on the freight yard side, they can loop around. They can go through the tunnel underneath and pop out right there by the locomotive.
I see.
So I think in total we have 3 or 4 independent loops that can all run separately.
And then almost all of them are double track too? It looks it?
No, it's a single line, but they're arranged in a way that you pair them up.
I see.
Yeah, this section is single track. This is the main. Then this is the inbound and outbound tracks for the yard.
Okay, so we crossed over the bridge, did another kind of loop back and around and through a large freight yard and port scene. And now it's coming around a very large roundhouse, turntable, and engine shops with a ton of different locomotives. And then where's it headed to now?
So now after here, we're going to go back up the hill and over the bridge. And at the Y, on the other side of the layout, we'll turn right and continue up the hill to the High Line. We're going to loop around and then go back down the hill. Even once we get down to the bottom level, there's another loop before we get to where we started.
Oh, wow. So you are right. It does take a very long time to get all the way around the main.
It's about 15 minutes, yeah. So every time I come here on a running night and run a train, I'm looking at the train schedule. I'm like, as we approach the time that I have to leave to walk to the SEPTA station to get on my train, I have to figure out, okay, is there going to be enough time for the loop or do I park it now? I don't want to get stuck halfway around the layout and then go, oh, it's time for me to leave.
Interesting. Yeah, I honestly do like just the good old-fashioned running of trains. I think that especially with the push towards operations, and obviously not to say that operations are a bad thing, I love doing it myself, who doesn't? But there is just some fun to be said about running a train, open throttle, open main line. Especially, there are some model railroads that I've operated on that are just so switching intensely focused that you never move more than a full train length at a time before you need to stop and switch out another industry. And it definitely is fun, but there's also just something to, again, the open main line in front of you.
Yeah, and I think this is an excellent layout for that.
And that's not to say that there aren't like switching opportunities and potential operations opportunities as well. Of course, you have the giant freight yard. It looks like there are a bunch of spurs everywhere, even some switching puzzles, it seems. Is that a steel mill or?
Cement mill.
Okay. Oh yeah, with the rotating kiln.
A cement grinder.
Yeah, so it definitely does look like it has something for everybody. It's a very beautiful layout. It's very cohesive, largely all together. The scenery is very nice, of a unified color. And there are big city areas and backdrops. There are kind of more country areas with hills and trees. It's a really nice layout. I would love to be part of a club like this.
The one thing that we always talk about is, because the layout looks completed at first glance, but the members who have been here a long time and know what to look for, they
that's
always
a SEPTA.
Yeah, there's a SEPTA going by. There's not enough trees.
Oh yeah.
It's not Pennsylvania with these bare hillsides. So we're working. This is the area we forested recently. Yeah, eventually the whole thing will be blanketed in trees.
All right, so now the train is going up above the main Union Station area, kind of at the very top edge of downtown on a not quite peninsula, but more like lobe of layout that is in front of an operating pit with the passenger yard / staging yard back there. And you're up on the High Line now, right?
Yep, this is the High Line. We'll see how, this is full throttle in this engine. I've programmed it to be a good speed for modeling, but then we have got a scale speedometer that'll tell you how fast. 56 miles an hour.
That's pretty slow.
It is really slow.
Tisk. You're not operating a good passenger service there.
We are not. We'll say that the frequency makes it okay. The speed record on here was set by a Silverliner model that we decided was emulating the Pioneer test train. Before this, they built the Silverliner, they built the Pioneer, and one of those set a speed record. I think the speed limit that we set was 180 something.
High speed
record? I think it beat the actual train. And now we're passing our town that's under construction.
And currently under destruction. One of those buildings is on fire.
It is on fire. It's been on fire for years. Firefighters have been there the whole time, but have not managed to put it out yet. We are currently rebuilding the town to put in the Faller self-driving car system.
Oh, beautiful.
Because we figured out self-driving cars before real life. Although, to be fair, they follow a wire embedded in the road, so it's a little easier.
I debated getting a Faller self-driving car system, especially what I wanted was, early on, was like a nice uninterrupted stretch of track, at least 8 or 10 feet long. Oh, more SEPTA. Like a single or double track main line down the median of a highway, emulating, there's a pretty famous stretch on Amtrak Cascades, the other joint line, I believe, between UP and BNSF, north of Portland and south of Seattle. And for a good, 10 or so miles, you can actually pace a track speed modern passenger train there. And I always thought it would be cool to get something like that on a model railroad, where you have the train moving, but then also just the cars going along on either side. And then I realized that was car-brained and I shouldn't get the Faller car system, and it is instead more woke to have the Magno-Rail and bicyclists only.
So a funny story about car dependency and model railroading. Over here, this is one of our latest projects. This is the Penn Falls, which is our fictional railroad, our fictional headquarters. Mm-hmm. And 2 members were working on the parking lot. And they were trying to decide, they were arguing amongst themselves, and they called me over to ask my opinion. They said, should we put more parking lot here, or should we put a hillside there? And one of them was saying, no, that's enough parking. We don't want to have all cars. We want to have some space for nature. And I was like, oh, they're getting it. And I said, what if we had a flag stop? Because the track goes right by. What if we had a flag stop here so the passenger train could stop and employees could take the train to work? And they loved that idea. And they're asking me for reference photos of the flag stops, what it might look like. And I said, yeah, we should abolish parking minimums. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads.
So close.
And I went, oh, you're not ready for that yet, but your kids are going to love it.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Beyond spectacular. Congratulations, you in model railroading.
Thank you.
You are the embodiment of everything this podcast stands for. Thank you for existing. Actually, no, that's a good question that we should maybe start with. So we know each other apparently, right?
Yeah, so we used to talk on the old model railroader forums, which I guess is still around, but several versions of whatever PHBB hosting site.
I know several versions of Model Railroader magazine have been around.
That's true, but it was still comic book at that point. Yeah, and we were both, I was probably 15 or 14. We were both struggling to get the respect of the members on there. I think
my sea foam green text.
And you were modeling narrow gauge at that point, right?
Maybe. So I started off by modeling HO scale standard gauge logging operations, but very strongly influenced by the narrow gauge and short line Gazette. So it's like I call it 4 feet, 8.5 inch narrow gauge. And I did that for a long time, both when I lived in Utah and a little bit when I did in Washington State. But then when I switched over to ON30 when I moved to Long Island in 2017, I of course discovered the main 2-footers, had an absolute field day. I was like, I could keep around all my old HO scale trains and still run them if I do ON30. And then I started it a little bit doing the Kennebec Central back then, because I was living only in a studio apartment on Long Island, not a lot of space. And then when I moved to Pennsylvania for grad school, I switched over to the Altoona and Beach Creek, or the amusingly acronymed A and BC. I swear that alone is more than half the reason why I modeled the railroad. But no, it's a fascinating little 12-mile long 3-foot gauge railroad that ran from literally across the street of the Juniata Locomotive Works and then up the hill 6 miles to a little Victorian Arab strolling garden hotel restaurant, and then 6 miles further to a coal mine. So I did spend like a good 8 or almost 9 years there ON30 modeling. And now, though, I'm back to HO standard gauge.
Okay. I guess I just remember it was something different than what most people were modeling. Like,
especially for young kids, too.
Yes. Yeah. The forums I remember being very much like, everyone loves to talk about how much we love steam engines, but very few people seem to actually model steam, it seems. Mm-hmm. Although maybe...
Or if they do, it's like transition era.
Yeah, it's transition era. It's like the big modern steam, which, don't get me wrong, I love steam engines of all types. The big modern ones are really cool, but very few people model the smaller, cuter steam engines. Mm-hmm. Despite being a qualified steam locomotive fireman and working on steam a lot, do not own a single model steam locomotive.
Interesting.
But if I got one, I think I might get like a 440 or an Atlantic, something small, maybe a Camelback Atlantic. They have a really nice one at the B&O Museum that it's so ugly and so beautiful at the same time. Something weird, you know?
Yeah, I definitely, I never picked normal stuff back then. All like 1890s and whatnot, I think, too.
Yeah, pre-1900 steam would be very cool.
Now, what did you model during this time?
At that time, I was modeling the White River Southern, which is a freelanced what-if railroad. What if the Boston and Maine did not abandon the Northern Division between Concord, New Hampshire, and White River Junction, Vermont, but instead sold it to a short line?
Your short line.
My short line. With B&M inspired paint schemes and way too much bridge traffic for a New Hampshire short line. I was running an intermodal train through New Hampshire. I don't think that intermodal lane exists. But I was modeling November 1997.
Interesting. Very specific.
Very specific.
For a 15-year-old, too.
Yeah, well, it was... A lot of that was based on my locomotives did not have ditch lights, so I was like, window or ditch lights required. Got a model before that because I don't have the skill or the money to install ditch lights.
Okay, that's actually a creative solution.
And then looking at the build dates of my freight cars and going, well, this is my newest car is from 1996, so I got to pick something between 1996 and 1998 or whatever the year was for ditch lights. So it was sort of the wrong way to arrive at what you're modeling, but when you're 14 or 15, my brain wasn't fully developed. I was just like, trains, not making good decisions.
And so you lived in Boston at the time, right?
I lived outside Boston. So that was in my parents' basement. I had, I think, a 115-foot mainline run.
God damn!
Yeah, it was sort of a big island in my parents' basement, and with a staging yard, and I was running car card and waybill operating system. Held operating sessions with my friends.
Wow.
The operating sessions took a couple hours. I was really into the operating side of it. There was I think I could host 3 or 4 operators, one person working the yard crew. Don't make me remember the train symbols I invented for these. LE1, I think, was the yard crew. LE2 was the local that ran from the yard to switch to the industries along the layout and then returned back, so it was a turn. Then there were 2 manifest mixed freight trains that ran over the line, one in each direction, and then a pair of intermodal trains, and sometimes the business train. So that could keep 3 people busy, no problem.
Already at 15, my goodness. I'm a failure in this hobby.
No,
I need
not
to
at
quit.
all. I also didn't do much. I did my own scenery, but I didn't.
I recall it being really good, though.
I was good at photography. I was good at showing the good parts of the scenery and ignoring the parts that were not as good. My trees were sedum, which is pretty common. It is usually more common to actually paint it instead of modeling it brown and just saying, oh, it's November, all the leaves are dead.
Again, a pragmatic decision based off of available resources. Well done.
I was and am very pragmatic. However, I'm working on finding the balance between pragmatism and laziness.
Oh my goodness. And so then how did you discover me again? Because I know I'd left the modelreality.com forums a long time ago, like 2015 or 16, I think it was. And so it's been at least a decade since then.
I think I ran into you in Alan Fisher's Discord server. Somehow that led me to your podcast, and specifically to, I know you've done multiple versions of this, the Proto-Future anthology, the 3-part series, and I specifically watched
the video clinics, right?
The video clinics, yeah, because I understand you told me that you also did them as just podcasts only, but I watched them ones with video because I like the visuals.
Much thanks to Tyler for the opportunity to clarify this, as I have gotten comments over the years that they are easily confused. I have done 2 separate 3-part things which are partially related. What I call the Modern Modeling Clinic Anthology is a 3-part clinic series given at NMRA events from Massachusetts to Texas, and which I re-recorded as PowerPoint videos and uploaded to YouTube. This details modern transit as a viable modeling subject. Part 1 introduces the concept of modern transit, covering in equal measure light rail, streetcars, and DMUs, showing how closely they relate to regular modeling subjects. Part 2 zooms in on DMU specifically and how their sharing of rails with regular freight trains directly influences model operations. Part 3 details mostly hypermodern intercity passenger trains and how I accidentally derived the concept of near-future modeling as a way to better interrelate passenger trains and freight operations, couched massively in an indirectly urbanist context. After I made the Modern Modeling Anthology, thus began this podcast, whither I made the 3-part Proto-Future prologue series. While these cover many of the same topics, they describe a much more personal journey of how I went from the 1890s steam modeling youth we were discussing to the anti-car founder of the world's only eco-Marxist model railroading podcast. While this series covers much more disparate topics, essentially Part 1 is the manifesto, detailing how and why I think model railroading is too conservative for its own sustainability. Part 2 goes over my urbanist awakening, and Part 3 explains how these two ended up conjoining to create the concept of near-future modeling, essentially how model railroading could, and should, be a hopium-coated exercise in improving the world that we're in. Rather than self-flagellate any further, you can find the links to all of these on the front page of the website found at bgtmrring.org. For now, though, back to Tyler Trahan and how...
I was inspired by I don't want this to seem too gushy, but like the modeling was cool. The ideas about what a model railroad could be are really interesting. But your zest for life was the part that I was inspired by.
My uncontrollable exuberance.
Yes. Yeah, you had a message which I found really compelling. You also said it in a really compelling way. And so I listened to your 3-part Modern Modeling Anthology, and it said a lot to me about what the future of model railroading could be. Because I've been out of the hobby for probably 10 years at that point. Like I stopped modeling around 2015. Like I dabbled a little bit, but like I stopped reading the hobby press. I stopped really doing much. I stopped talking to anybody else who modeled. And then I finally got back into it when I moved to Philly in 2023. Yeah. Time is confusing. I've moved 11 times in the last 10 years.
God damn.
So remembering what year I was where is hard sometimes. Yeah, so I found the club, and because I was like, I live in a new city. I work remotely. I need to talk to some other humans in the flesh. I need some meat space. Some meat space friends. So I joined the train club. You have to have a train to run at the train club. So I got some of my old trains. So I've still got my White River Southern locomotives. They're at home, but I've still got a couple of my run here. I bought my first new locomotive in like 10 years. This FL9 and the coaches that go along with it. And the club for me is mostly a social thing. I help out with the layout to the extent that I have the time and interest and skills to do.
Well, again, you said that you're a board member, so
yeah.
Clearly you're at least stepping up slightly more than the average modeler.
Yeah, I'm stepping up where I can. I don't have the confidence to, like, I would do scenery on my own layout, no problem. Scenery on a club layout that everyone else is going to look at is like, it's a little more intimidating.
Oh, I have seen his scenery, and he is humongously underselling himself.
If I can do my part by being on the board and helping like run the day-to-day operations of like remembering, we got to vote on we're going to continue to pay the electricity bill or whatever, stuff like that, I'll do that. When it's like show season is coming up, when there's a cleaning day, I will happily show up and clean the layout for 8 hours. If that's what I can contribute to the club, so be it. I think everyone should be encouraged to contribute to the club in the different ways that they can.
Interesting. Now, another board member of this club is also Alan Fisher, right?
Yeah.
And the both of you have strong ideas about like when layouts are set and club layouts and how you appeal to especially young people these days?
Yeah, so any democratic organization like a club, like a train club, is going to be slower to change than a personal layout. If I were modeling my own personal layout, I could do whatever I want. I'm not sure it would be a modern layout. I might go back and model the Boston.
November 1997 again?
I've just been there, done that. No, I might go...
maybe December or October.
Don't tempt me. Maybe I even go to spring and have to learn how to make trees. I might go back to the Boston Revere Beach and Lynn, which is a 3-foot narrow gauge. They were
Proto-subway. Light metro.
Yeah, 3-foot gauge tank engines they were running. Then they electrified and were running 3-foot narrow gauge EMU train sets with open platform wooden coaches that they put traction motors and trolley poles on. It's a cool little railroad.
And then eventually became?
Well, they abandoned it.
Well, the Blue Line now.
It became, yes, they've reused its tracks for the Blue Line, but it was long gone by then. But yes, you can now ride much of it as the Blue Line.
But even still with the overhead wire and those comically tiny little pantographs that look like you're going off the models.
Yes, the Blue Line has really small cars, although that's not because it was narrow gauge. The Blue Line cars are
Bowden
small
Circle?
because, because the city section was originally built for streetcars.
Ah.
Yeah.
And then they just tunneled under the water.
The tunnel was for streetcars too.
Oh, I know.
Oh, someone's going to correct me. I believe the tunnel was originally for streetcars.
Interesting.
And
then they just interlined the interurbans and got rid of the streetcars?
No, I believe they switched it all at once. I believe they switched it over one weekend.
Oh.
The platform at Maverick is really, really wide. It's a weird station. That used to be a turning loop for streetcars.
Huh. You know, I see that. I believe that now.
It's been a long time since I, A, lived in near Boston, and B, was an expert of anything Boston. But I used... Okay, here's going way back. If any of you used to read the blog, I Ride the T, that was me.
I actually had an Acela engineer do that to me this morning.
Nice.
At Croydon.
Right. So if you're modeling your own individual layout, you can do whatever you want with it. A club layout is going to be a little slower to change. This club was founded in the 40s and 50s, and the layout was actually set in the present day. But the present day was the 40s and 50s. So I think theoretically it still is set in the modern day. We have some modern vehicles like the Faller car system. We're using modern cars for that. But we still got a roundhouse. We still got a trolley loop in the street. I mean, so does Philadelphia.
That's more an indictment of Philadelphia than an endorsement of the layout, but yeah.
This is true. We also have a break bulk freighter over at the dock.
Oh, wow.
So the layout could be called the modern era, but for the most part it has not been updated. There's a White Castle over there. There's a whole bunch of 50s cars hanging around. I think it could be updated, but actually figuring out what to update and how and getting everyone to agree on it, or enough people to agree on it, is a slightly different question. Neither Alan or I have made a serious effort to propose modernization. A lot of that, at least for me, is due to the layout being, and I understand it's not finished. One member who gets upset when we say the layout's finished, but
it's in a cohesive, completed looking state.
Yeah, and if you want to change something, you have to tear something else out. So that inherently makes it much more difficult. It's not that I think we couldn't tear anything out. It's a harder conversation to have. If it's a conversation of, hey, fellow members, I think in this empty space we should put a 5/1 and a modern light rail stop. That's a much easier conversation to have than I think we should tear out this fire station
and build a 5/1 there.
And build a 5/1 there.
You would literally be gentrifying the model city.
and who are we displacing? Because what I don't want to have happen is to step on anybody's toes. I don't want to say, look at this old fire station, we should put something else there instead, and for them to say, I built that fire station myself. I dedicated it to my late wife of 20 years. This is exaggerating quite a bit, but you never know what is someone's baby that you would have to tear out to put something new in its place. So for the most part, modernizing the club, I say this doing air quotes, is we run whatever trains we want. So our monthly running nights are usually about 85% Amtrak. We have a bunch of members who love Amtrak, so we'll have I'll be running my 1990s Amtrak Empire service. Someone else will be running, I believe it's a model of the Broadway Limited, back when that was an Amtrak train. So it's got all of the baggage, the mail boxcars in the back. We'll have one or sometimes two push-pull Amtrak Keystone sets. We'll have the Arrow running around that doesn't exist yet in real life, not the New Jersey Transit EMU. And then at least one a regional, and then the Acela, and then one other member will have
a freight train.
Here's a freight train. Yeah.
Oh, wow, a real dog's breakfast.
Yes, but mostly Amtrak.
Yeah,
Even though our freight trains, though, our freight trains get pretty crazy. We have one member who has some locomotives, some Conrail, like big Conrail EMDs that she's put pantographs on as like an alt-future Conrail electrified successfully, which is the future I want to live in.
Oh, if only. Me too.
Yeah, someday we'll gentrify, maybe, but it's difficult. I was telling you this earlier, but we weren't recording. Over here, we've got our dockyard, where there's a coal yard, there's a coal barge, and this break bulk freighter.
Theodore Gillies?
Yeah, I don't know what the name is. A lot of these things are named after previous members, so maybe that. I think if we were to modernize this area, obviously someone spent a lot of time working on this ship. We can't just throw out the ship, but we could turn it into a museum ship. Philadelphia has some museum ships, which are excellent if you ever get the time to go. I want to put in a miniature version of the new Schuylkill River Trail extension, a mixed-use pathway along the coast here, and then maybe where this really looks like a scene in real life. This crane up on stilts right next to this bridge. I think this is a real scene. Maybe keep this, but like make it overgrown, show the passage of time. And again, I've said this before, gotta find a 5 for everyone. If we're gonna do gentrification, we have to make it look like gentrification. We need a 5/1 with like a vegan coffee shop in the first floor.
Oh my God.
I don't want to name drop actual Philly businesses, but with like some kind of death metal theme. Yeah,
I love it.
Grindcore coffee is one that's in Philadelphia that is exactly this.
Oh my goodness. I actually have a thought for you on the crane. Are you familiar with Domino Park in New York City?
Is that right near the Hellgate line bridge? Hellgate Bridge line?
Near enough. It's a few miles away, maybe.
Okay.
It's on the East River of Brooklyn, looking over at Manhattan. And they actually have several large cranes exactly like this that were part of like the Domino Sugar Factory or whatever the name was there. And but the thing is, they made it into like a modern park out of the industrial decay. They took the cranes that looked almost exactly like that, and they painted them just like phosphorescent teal. And then they put and then they put a ton of like catwalks up and down around the crane supports, and then of course like an actual children's playground at the bottom in colors and shapes that matched the giant cranes. But then the adults could like walk up the crane catwalks and look down at their children. So that's what I vote. You need some green space and blue space in the model railroad.
We do need more green. Yeah, talking about blue space. This water could probably be replaced.
Brown space.
I'm not sure. Yeah, this layout is so old. I'm not sure if this is a model of a murky water or if the water is just
murky and
old enough to get Social Security and the physical material of this model water has degraded over time.
That's funny. Now, in an ideal world, especially as it relates, also we were talking about how you've gotten a lot of questions yourself of like getting young people in railroad preservation as well as model railroading. Assuming that you could like get people on your side and you wouldn't have to worry about such pesky annoying things as democracy. How would you view the Model Railroad Club? What is its role in the hobby as a whole, and then community and outreach in general?
That is a tricky question for me because I don't typically associate myself with the model railroad community. I don't read any hobby publications. I don't listen to any model train podcasts besides yours.
Thank you.
For me, model railroading is, I've worked in the industry. I've been thousands of miles in the cab of a steam engine. Like a model train is never going to be as cool to me as the real thing. Mm-hmm. But so for me, it's a chance to meet other people who like trains that I can be friends with. I think modeling has become absurdly expensive. I foresee
It's only expensive if you want to buy such annoying things as like food or housing.
Well, yes. We can talk about late stage capitalism later, but yeah, I've sort of become disillusioned with model railroading as the hobby for me. I think it's great for other people. It's not really my thing. I think my involvement in the future will be I continue to be a member of a train club, show up, run trains in a circle, make friends, but I don't see myself doing a lot of serious modeling. This might be blasphemy, but I've actually done more virtual model railroading and modeling, and
Well, now it's your job, right?
Well, yes. Yeah, I work on 2 train games, one of which I get paid for. I won't name because I don't think I'm authorized to speak on that, but it's a train game and...
And that I have played.
Yeah, many viewers have probably played it. I also work on OpenTTD, which is the opposite of the paid train simulator genre game that I work on. OpenTTD is free and open source, and it's a tycoon game with little pixel trains. It is why I believe that... No, maybe too much for your podcast.
No, Tyler, no, it is not.
Why I believe in the concept of anarchy and the ability of a non-hierarchical group to do amazing things.
Welcome to Proto-Future, a podcast about leftist anarchic railroading hobbies.
OpenTTD has been in continuous development for 20 years now, and that shows no sign of stopping. We're still doing a yearly release with new features. And there's no project manager, there's no hierarchy. Every maintainer has equal rights to approve, deny, make request changes.
It's a coders collective.
It is a coders collective, yeah. And it's beautiful. It is what the internet used to be about and should be about.
Interesting.
It gives me so much hope for my fellow humans. So it's a long-winded way of saying a lot of my train engagement is digital, for better or worse. That has replaced physical models for me for the most part.
More space efficient?
It is more space efficient, and you can do things that you can't in models. I've never heard a model steam locomotive that sounds quite as good as the real thing, but I played a game of Railroader last night with some friends, which does an excellent job, making you really feel like you are in the steam era when steam locomotives were the thing that kept America moving, and you really feel like you're part of a crew doing useful work when you're simulating that.
Interesting. Now, maybe a question, and this is one that I have a little bit myself, but I imagine also a lot of outreach as far as other people who may not know. So things like Train Simulator, Train Sim World, Train Z Simulator, all of those are pretty straightforward. You can kind of understand, even if you've never played them or really don't do much in the way of computer games, that it's you sit in a cab and you throw the throttle and you pay attention to the signals and you run the train. But OpenTTD, isn't that a lot of it different for somebody who may not know much about it and how that works? Describe the game. What is it like?
Sure. So it is a sort of top-down. You are the eye in the sky, and you are building the tracks and buying the trains and telling them what to do. You don't actually drive anything. You organize the world, and it's like a little ant farm of trains. I think the original box art for Transport Tycoon Deluxe, which is what OpenTTD is inspired by and based on, the original box art says, "We'll satisfy the megalomaniac in everyone," and that is a very accurate statement. So if you've played Transport Fever, that is inspired by OpenTTD. But Transport Fever has great 3D graphics, but you can't have 5,000 trains and have your normal computer continue to run well. OpenTTD has the advantage of scale. 5,000 trains, 5,000 trucks, 5,000 ships, 5,000 aircraft. Your computer will continue to run. Maybe not with a game that large, but a smaller game will run on a toaster. Because it's an older pixel art game, and B, we've had 20 years to refine it.
Wow.
Some of our developers play the game, but the real game is making the game. Like the ultimate meta game is in making OpenTTD run 3% faster, and that's more satisfying than making a train company that makes a lot of money. We got off topic. Your previous question was, what is the role of train clubs in bringing new people into the hobby and introducing them into trains? I think there is such a wide variety of humans and how we work and how we learn and how our brains work. I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all solution. There may be questions later about a manifesto I wrote, or you may have mentioned already, a manifesto I wrote about how to improve museums. I wrote that 10 years ago, and my views have evolved a lot since then. My opinion on then was more of a one-size-fits-most situation. I've sort of changed my thoughts on that. I think model train clubs appeal to many people. They do not have to appeal to everybody. I think there's an argument for quality versus quantity isn't quite the right phrase, but it's the same idea. Should your organization, should you try and reach out to a lot of people to know what a train is? Or should you reach out to a few people to get them really involved in being part of that and owning models and being involved in it? Like with museums, the sort of parallel for that would be, would you rather have a museum that 1 million people visit and they push some buttons and go, okay, I learned there were trains there? Or would you rather have 10 volunteers who spend every weekend working on the train, restoring equipment, maintaining equipment, operate the train, or spend their careers working in the industry? Ideally, you should do both. I used to work at a transportation museum, and one of the most rewarding project I ever worked on was the Next Generation Railroaders Boot Camp, which was for young adults aged 16 to 20, and it was a way for them to experience everything that they would get to do working at a railroad or volunteering at a museum. It was really a youth volunteer program, but people travel all over the country. So the museum is in North Carolina. We had attendees from Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, both Carolinas. People came from all over. And it was only, the cap was 10 people, because we would actually get out and work on track. We were like, here's a spike mall. We're gonna spike some track. We're gonna change out some ties. They got to work on restoration projects. They helped work on I believe it was a Baltimore and Ohio position light signal that they were helping prepare for painting and restoration. They helped needle scale the old paint off a passenger car. And at the very end of the week, we put them in the locomotive cab and taught them how to run a diesel locomotive back and forth. You can only do this for 10 people in a week. But how do you value that experience versus we had 1,000 people come to the museum and they read a panel and pushed some buttons on an interactive? Ideally you need both. But you can't just go for numbers. You need to go for that quality of experience, because that's how you really meet people where they're at and you give them something that's important to them. I'm rambling quite a bit. This is the most philosophical interview I've ever done, and I really like it.
I have that effect on people.
I really like it. It's just different, because I've been on camera a lot for mostly videos, education videos, promotional videos. Talking about philosophy is a little bit different.
This is actually a brilliant opportunity to go into your museum manifesto.
Yeah.
You wrote it 10 years ago. You gave me a copy. I read it, and it seems like a brilliantly poignant, fresh way of looking at railroad museums that I don't think any single railroad museum in the entire country has ever gotten to. So I guess for people who haven't read the manifesto, is there a way that you could summarize what the point of the manifesto itself was? And then can you get to how your views have evolved in the past decade, especially you having worked at the Railroad Museum in North Carolina, and I believe also the Durango and Silverton as well. So you've been on both sides of the equation for a very long time.
Yeah, so I started my museum career in science museums. Started volunteering at the Science Museum when I was 15. 2 years later, they were like, Tyler, you're doing the work as an employee. Can we pay you? Can we give you a job? Which was amazing. Well, it was the Museum of Science in Boston. One of the largest, most prominent, I'm biased, but I would say best, science museums in the country, at least the ones I've been to. I was there for 6 years, starting as a volunteer, ending as a part-time, 4 days a week employee. I worked in 6 different departments, so I really got enough knowledge about how museums work to be dangerous. And I then went to go work for the railroad out in Colorado. I was a steam locomotive fireman and brakeman. Enjoyed that, wasn't quite ready to make that my whole career. So I missed museums, I missed talking to people. When you're up in the engine shoveling coal, it's a very satisfying job. It's also stressful, and especially if your engineer isn't very talkative, kind of lonely. I don't talk to people. I'm an extrovert, so I need to talk to people. So I missed museums, and I said, well, I've worked in trains. I've worked in museums. There are train museums. But I've been to a lot of train museums, and I've always kind of been disappointed by the missing potential there, lost potential.
I think your manifesto
The American Railroad Museum is fundamentally broken?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I started off. It's certainly...
Which, to be fair, all manifestos do have to stake a pretty bold claim very early on. You nailed that.
I said this about your manifesto. I have enormous respect for anyone who writes a manifesto and is not also a domestic terrorist.
Gee, thank you for the ringing endorsement there.
No, I say this as someone who wrote a manifesto that is not about violence.
We need to take back the means of education.
Yes, I think railroad museums can learn a lot from science museums about education and actually trying to reach their visitors. I think a lot of railroad museums, their mission statement talks about preservation and history and doesn't say a word about people. The mission statement seems to be, these are old trains and I will be sad if the old trains get cut up. So they form an institution to avoid them from being cut up, which is a good place to start. But so many of them sort of try and later parlay that into education and trying to teach everyone about trains. And it feels like their mission is to make people like trains, which I agree with. I think people should like trains, but I'm not laboring on the delusion that everyone will like trains. And I think there's a lot that they could learn about how to present the information and to focus on the visitor.
To focus on the curation of the exhibits more than just having many exhibits?
Yeah, well, and to focus on what the visitor is walking away from, what the visitor is experiencing. Like, you can't just tell them this is a cool train, and here's all the details about the train, and have that mean something to somebody who doesn't already have an emotional connection to that train.
Or, more notably, not even tell them, but give it to them in a block of text on a panel next to the train in a cold, empty warehouse.
Yes, we can talk more about the cold, empty warehouse, but the cold, empty warehouse is a huge step up from a lot of museums.
Which is a hot, open yard.
Yes. The number one enemy of the Railroad Museum is the weather. If you're cold, they're cold. Bring them inside. No, I mean, this is tangentially related. There's a common idea in the community of people who like trains that we should save everything, or at least one of everything. It's 2025, we can't be scrapping X or Y. If you try and save everything, you will end up saving nothing because resources are limited. You only have so much money. And if it's a choice between having 10 locomotives outside or 2 locomotives under a roof, you should pick your 2 favorites to put under a roof and let the other 10 be deaccessioned to other museums who can take care of it, or I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. If you can't save it, like, maybe it does need to not be saved. Because if you keep all 10 trains outside and you say, we're not gonna cut up anything, this steam locomotive, we can't restore it now, we'll just leave it here, someone will restore it later.
The weather will cut it up for you.
The weather will cut it up for you, yeah. The paint will fade, it'll turn chalky, you'll get rust and water damage, and 20 years later, there will be nothing left to preserve. Your train will be condemned. And can you restore it for the right amount of money? Yes, but you're replacing all of it, so you could just build a new one for the same amount of money and work. Like this, I recognize I am being harsh and exaggerating something slightly, but you cannot save everything. You should not try. You should pick something and do it well instead of trying to do a little bit of everything.
But then you also focused a lot on curation, of like creating fairly new types of exhibits that, if you think about it, have been seen a lot in science museums, but not very much in railroading. Things like interactive walkways that illustrate signals and block signaling, where you can walk down a hall, one of several different like painted tracks on the floor, and then see the signals change. Live events and demonstrations in a theater with, I guess, models or more like maybe demonstrations of technology and whatnot. It's not just about the artifacts as you outlined it. You also brought a really insightful and fresh take on the presentation of what artifacts you have as well, making it a lot more interactive and, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, maybe colorful for the visitor.
Yeah, and I had some ideas, which are mostly sort of theoretical examples in the manifesto, but I guess to illustrate, I'll talk about what I actually did at the museum. So as far as interactive exhibits go, a lot of exhibits in train museums are very static. They are very object-oriented, collection-oriented, which they should be. You should use artifacts. If you don't have artifacts, it's not as real. And I say that this is one of the things that changed a lot from my manifesto. My manifesto was like, you don't need artifacts. Besides trains, no one cares. I changed my view on that. You should have some. But if you have a display case full of railroad lanterns, which every railroad museum I've ever been to has a display case full of lanterns, why? Who cares? That is not... The only people who care about a display case full of lanterns are people who already collect lanterns of their own. And they don't need your display case full of lanterns. Anyone who doesn't care about a lantern display case will not have their mind changed. They'll just go, wow, this place is boring.
So you say that, and I remember myself seeing many lantern display cases and walking right by them, and I love trains.
Yeah, so what I want to do, okay, so you want to talk about railroad lanterns, because that is a big thing in railroads. It's outdoors, it's all weather, all season, all night, day and night. You need to see, and you're also using lanterns for signaling, for communication before radios, and even, I've worked on the road enough to know hand signals, I will take hand signals, good hand signals with a competent crew over radio communication any day. They are faster, safer, and more precise. I know we use 40 different hand signals, and whistle signals. Yeah, you can have a whole conversation with good hand signals. But you want to talk about communication and lanterns? Don't show off the artifacts. You have one in a display case, and then you have some props. You have reproduction lanterns that can get banged around, they can get dropped. A kid can punch it across the museum and it'll be fine because it's made of plastic.
Bouncy.
Or you're supervising with an interpreter who will make sure they don't do that. But you actually give them a lantern and you have a screen, maybe like an Xbox Connect game or like Dance Dance Revolution, where you have a video screen in front of them and you show them, you have a video presenter who shows them, here's how you give a hand signal for proceed. And then you give that visitor a lantern and say, okay, now you do it. And either you have, Xbox Connect or whatever to judge you for it, or you have an interpreter who will teach you it. You make it interactive somehow. This stuff does not have to be expensive. Science museums have much bigger budgets, although you'd be surprised at how resourceful they are sometimes. Your average railroad museum does not have a big budget, but this stuff does not have to be expensive. I did an exhibit about train wheels and how they steer around curves. And we did that by 3D printing some train wheels, putting them on a wooden axle, and then building a track out of PVC pipe on a base that me and one other volunteer built in a weekend, on site, built and painted ourselves. The most low budget thing, but you can roll the 3 different wheels down the track. One is perfectly cylindrical wheels with the flange, and that derails. So for anyone who doesn't know, train wheels have a conical taper, unless you're Bart, before they redid theirs.
To those who don't know, Bay Area Rapid Transit, or BART, has long been known for its, quote, infamous and ear-splitting howl. Normal railroad wheels are conical to gently guide the train to the center of the track before experiencing a heinous jolt upon flange contact. For some inane reason, BART tried cylindrical, non-conical wheels, at broad gauge, mind you, to prevent the gentle side-to-side hunting oscillation that, keeps the train from derailing. The end result, however, was that the wheels played the rails like a violin string, resulting in horrendously accelerated wear and tear, in addition to a suicide-inducing squeal, particularly in the Transbay tube. BART subsequently spent years and millions correcting its wheel profile issues, although it's still not much better. I know I'm an anti-bus, pro-tram, and light rail extremist, but having literally just ridden it upon this writing, BART makes me want to be anti-subway too.
They have a conical taper, so they self-steer around curves.
And this is because of the NMRA recommended practice 25?
The real railroads figure this out. Yeah, the wheel shifts its position on the rail as it goes into a curve so that the path of the contact patch on each wheel between wheel and rail is the same as it goes through a curve. It's geometry. Look it up. I don't mean that in a condescending way. What I mean is...
I was going to say, wow, you're a really good museum curator.
What I'm saying is, I am struggling to explain this purely verbally. You might have to just edit all this part out. To communicate why trains self-steer around curves, we built a 3D model and a home-built exhibit where visitors can place a wheel at the top of this hill, and it either successfully makes it down the hill and around a curve, or it doesn't. And you can figure out which wheel works and which wheel doesn't. And then there's a panel next to it that explains why. Talks about the science and geometry of it.
But it's interactive. And
it's interactive.
It demonstrates the concepts of the railroads not through static artifacts, but through like self-derived experimentation and play.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one way you can reach like kids. Or even
adults who don't care.
Everyone. Adults are often, in my experience, too self-conscious to use interactive exhibits. If they're with their kids, that's their excuse. I saw so many dads rushing to play with the interactive exhibits, like dragging his kid along.
The kid didn't want to be there.
Look, we can play with this. Like, he clearly wants to play with it, and that's great. What I wish is that more adults would play, would learn how to play, especially in museums. That's what they're there for.
Take a page from Disney adults.
Yeah. Yeah, so you also mentioned, I wrote about this in my proposal, like a theater space, like to have live shows with an interpreter. That's something science museums are big at. They'll have a live animal show where they take out a baby alligator and they'll talk to you about it, and they'll hold it and they explain it to you and talk about it. Or they'll do a science show about, liquid nitrogen and how if you can freeze a balloon and it, becomes solid, you can shatter the balloon that's been frozen with liquid nitrogen. I think road museums should do more of that. They should have a space for an interpreter who's not just like giving a walking tour of an artifact. Like, talk about ideas and concepts, not just use the artifacts to illustrate concepts. That is really the big thing. You don't talk about the artifacts. Use the artifacts to talk about ideas. That's what I think road museums need to learn.
I cannot agree more.
So one of the programs that I did was Trainwreck Science, which talked about the physics and science of train derailments and collisions and other mishaps. We talked about heat expansion of rails, where
thermal misalignment events.
Yeah, and that was interactive. I had a pool noodle, and I held one end, I gave the other to a visitor, or had two kids each hold them. Let's walk towards each other and watch that the pool noodle buckles. When the rail gets hot and it expands, that's what happens. Now you've experienced that for yourself. We walked over to Caboose and talked about flag protection. I showed them a railroad lantern.
Just
outside,
the one, not a case?
The display case. Yeah, so I showed them some lantern signals. Here's what you do if your train stops and there was another one behind you. You'd have to walk back there and wave your lantern, and it's nighttime. Maybe it's really, the air is full of mosquitoes. Maybe it's raining. Like, this is what you'd have to do if you worked on the railroad. We talked about broken knuckles on couplers. Ooh. That's more of a modern topic than, lantern flagging. I showed them. I told them, do not do this at home. Do not try this at your local railroad. I showed them how to change a knuckle. So I got like a 3/4 inch piece of plywood and put it on the floor underneath the coupler of a steam locomotive, and I showed them, here's how you pop the pin out. I haven't done this in a few years. I think you open it and then you yank on the cut lever, and the knuckle kicker kicks the knuckle right out of the coupler and it drops it on the ground. Watch out for your toes. I always wear steel toe boots at work, so I was safe.
Yeah, they don't make them in my
Visitors
style.
stand way back. No.
Steel toe shoes, just individually one by one.
Steel toe shoes. Yeah. There was, without getting into too much detail, we were on a tour and we actually witnessed a minor derailment, like a yard derailment near the museum that just happened, and they were like, "Hey, wait, that train just derailed." And I went, "Oh yeah, that's a teachable moment." Some of them thought I did it on purpose. Said, "No, this is a coincidence."
Oh, the general public.
Yeah.
What's the phrase? Person is smart, people are stupid.
Yes. The number of times I've been asked, what time does the 8 o'clock train leave? Or at what elevation do deer turn into elk?
So that reminds me a little bit. I absolutely love how in like the opening loading screen of Train Sim World, how it basically says, "We teach you about real railroads and locomotives. Please don't do a terrorism."
Don't do a terrorism is good life advice. Yeah.
You can pass that
If you really want to drive a real train, go volunteer at a museum that will teach you how to drive it. Do not DIY. Or, I mean, honestly, and this is advice I give to a lot of people. If you really want to drive a train, it is actually really cool. Find a museum that does, at the throttle or engineer for an hour. They call them a bunch of different things. but go do that.
Or better yet, volunteer.
Better yet, volunteer, but you might not have the time to volunteer, especially if you want to drive a train, engineer. It takes years when you're getting paid for it full time. It takes even longer if you're volunteering, especially depending on how many volunteers that tourist railroad has and what their culture is towards qualifying new people. I've heard some horror stories. Yeah, sometimes I don't want to say incompetence, but the lack of resources to get it done in a timely basis is
the
best case scenario. Sometimes it's just straight up discrimination. I've worked with a lot of women in the railroad industry. Every single woman I've worked with in heritage railroads and museums and like the class 1s and commuter railroads, every single one of them is a better railroader than 95% of the men she works with, because that's how you survive. That's the only way you can. Unfortunately, like, it is a disgusting double standard. I have been like tasked with training women who had more experience than me. There was one day I won't mention where I was, but I was working, and there was one who was working. We were doing the same job. We were dispatching. I said, this is your railroad today. Like, I will sign off on the paperwork because I'm the dispatcher of record, but like, you've been doing this as long as I have. They promoted me before you because I'm a man, but it's your railroad. I'm just gonna sit here and read my book or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the things that I do try to get at, is that even though this is technically a leisure time hobby, big trains and small, it is still inherently political. The very fact that we have one half of two major parties that actually wants to get anything done on railroad and passenger train expansion, it's like, I'm not making trains political and then taking away people's checkout time for just a hobby to decompress for a day. It's that trains already were political to begin with, and to try and pretend that they are not, that all of these things that influence the entire rest of the world, to try and pretend that they don't influence here too, is at best naive.
I agree. I also feel like the term politics, or something is political, I think has been expanded too far. Like, I think I should be able to go to the club and I don't need to talk about monetary policy with my fellow club members. But if we have a disagreement over who should be allowed to do certain things, if we have a human rights disagreement, that's not politics. Human rights are not politics. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You can't say that, I don't think women should be allowed to join my train club, and you don't get to argue with me. This is a completely, a hypothetical situation, but
because, clearly, one of the most motivated members of this club here, who's doing things in model form that I have never, ever seen before. She clearly is quite talented and motivated, but I can... What's the Ratatouille quote? Not anyone can cook, but a great cook can come from anywhere. And yet the fact that just looking at the average train club, it is very old, it is very white, it is very male, and it is very straight. And just imagine how many, if this is just one younger female modeler in one club, just imagine how much more modeling greatness could be out there if we fixed this leaky pipeline.
If we weren't, as a hobby, hemorrhaging potential participants with barriers from financial to outright discrimination.
100% agree. Yeah, I think that is one of my favorite things about this club, is that it is a more varied group of people than I've seen at other clubs.
YouTubers, historians, coders.
No, I was going to say, as a straight white guy, it's hard for me to put myself in anyone else's shoes, but when I joined the club, and when I walked in for the open house and saw that I was not the youngest person in the room by far, and there were a bunch of people my age, that made me feel like I too could join the club and be accepted. I would imagine it's true for others as well. Wow, I'm losing my voice.
We have been going on for only 90 minutes.
Seeing as there are 90 minutes of interview left to go, it seems this is an excellent place to be kind to myself, better keep up with monthly releases, and pause our discussion to be picked up in a future episode. Exuberant and effervescent thanks to Tyler for the time he's given me throughout his life, and especially here, and the astonishingly worldly perspective he brings to what he does. Broadcasting from beautiful downtown Oakland, California, this is 99% Proto-Future, Episode 14, Interview with Tyler Trahan, Part 1, Urbanism, Train Clubs, Railroad Museums, and Equity. The theme music is Spark of Life by Benjamin Lazarus through Tribe of Noise. I would like to thank my extremely generous and patient patrons Pedro Reyes, Ron Kleiss, Bill Ford, Linda Eskin, and Roger Coleman. If you would like to know more, you can visit the website at www.bgtmrring.org. That's Bravo Golf Tango, Michael Romeo Romeo, Indigo November Golf, Oscar Romeo Golf. To listen to the Manifesto and Prologue series, watch the Modern Modeling Clinic anthology, or read the free-to-access Patreon production blog. And please consider donating $1 an episode to help defer hosting and equipment costs and support what I do. This content is fully CAN-credentialed. You can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm to their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org. This podcast was written, recorded, and produced on the ancestral lands of the Susquehannock, Lenni Lenape, Wyout, Miwok, Nisean, Yokuts, Ohlone, Muwekma, and Ramaytush tribe. I would like to thank them for their historical stewardship of central and southeastern Pennsylvania and northern and central California. Thank you very much for listening. Keep riding trains, keep punching Nazis, and keep building a better future.